Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Lead Pastor Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. I'm your long-lost co-host. I haven't been here for a week, I
got
guess.
my co-host back.
Yeah, but it feels like it has been for a while.
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
So, obviously, you know this guy, Matthew, Mateo. Any other?
No, that's pretty good.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, Matthew William. Yeah.
Matthew William.
Willie.
Willie. Who calls you Willie?
Hammy. My sister, Allison, will call me Willie.
Really?
And my dad will call me Hammy.
Where's
Something
the
you didn't know.
From?
I used to call it like Hambone. I don't even know where the nickname came from. Just Hambone and then Hammy.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm getting into nicknames now.
He's the only one that calls me that. Well, some of his old coworkers from back in the day would know me as that. Not as Matt, but yes.
Willie and Hambone.
Who knew?
Who knew? So my co-host Hambone, welcome.
Well, I had a competent co-host last week.
Oh, he was?
Yes.
Who was that?
Durder.
He was competent?
You called him Durder on stage. I didn't know that was legal.
Oh.
I didn't know that was allowed.
I think that's what some of his family call him. So
Yeah.
I figured I'd call him that. But I did. I at least gave him his title, Pastor Durder.
There you go.
Yeah, Pastor Durder.
And I put him on the spot and had him sing a little bit. So if you guys didn't check that out.
Oh, I didn't hear. Well, so I only watched, probably the first 10, 15 minutes.
So you're the average. So I looked at the stats. Most people stop after 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh, really?
So to try to increase that a little bit, I said, hey, at the end, you're going to have a little something. And I had, at the very, very end, I had him sing. So.
All right, so we will have to wrap things up in about 10 minutes.
Because anything you say after.
All right, we're done. Just playing.
Well, this week, so we're in a new series.
Yep.
And what was interesting about this is, so this is our A&E series, New Songs, Same Humanity. This was the second week, but this was your first week.
Yeah.
So you did a little bit of an introduction of why we do this series. Plus, you got into the song. So this is July 13th and 14th, and we did the song by Siza. It's interesting to say it, Siza.
It does. Makes you feel weird saying it.
Makes you try to feel like you're cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saturn. I'll tell you what, I hadn't heard the song before. Immediately catchy. It just sticks in my head. I've been probably singing it all week. Yeah. Interesting how that works, right?
What music does. It
what
gets
happens
stuck.
to songs. It does.
That's why you got to pay attention to what you're listening to.
Yeah. I'm excited to get into that. So you said two main goals for this series. This will help you spiritually and biblically process the music you listen to. We all listen to music. Mm-hmm. We listen to music on commercials. We listen to music, at work. We listen to music at church. We listen to music going to work and coming home and with family and friends. It really shapes our lives, whether we realize it or not. And then this will equip you to missionally engage family, friends, and coworkers, because whether we know these songs or listen to them, we may have people in our lives that do.
Yep.
And whether we only listen to maybe Christian music or certain music, we do have people in our lives that listen to a broad, diverse array of music. And this is a way that we can connect to them, right? Mm-hmm. Not just live within our Christian bubble, but actually relate to them in a really interesting and unique way. So the outline, you gave several pieces in your introduction. You talked about Daniel 3 from the previous series. You gave a new fancy word to us, ethnomusicology.
Yeah.
We talked about how artists and their music, what they express. Mm-hmm. Gave us a list of those. You talked about ways that we can engage culture and questions we should ask. All of that. Really, I put that in the introduction of why we do this series and why it's important.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of good, compelling things there that could have probably spent. I think that's the tension of these series is you can probably spend a whole week on the introduction.
You could. I mean, especially the introduction is meant to teach. Taking an idea, taking a topic, and letting you wrestle with the depths of music. Why would we even explore it? Because sure, could I teach a class on this? I mean, I guess I could, but how many people would really take it?
Right.
Here, so now I got everybody's attention. I got 2,500 people's attention.
Right.
So let me introduce this concept. Let me help you wrestle with some ideas, some principles, some thoughts that are biblical thoughts. Mm-hmm. But it's not like you can go to Colossians 3 and say, open your Bibles to Colossians 3, and I'm going to unpack Colossians 3, and this will be it. No, you're taking a topic, and this is why I would say that what we do in the summer with cultural engagement, you're taking a topic. So the church and the divided democracy. So you're taking democracy, and you're trying to unpack how the church, from a missional perspective, biblical perspective, engages a democracy. And there's going to be, again, there's going to be truth that you glean from that can be applied to if you lived in a communist, but you're taking a topic that is very relevant, and you're trying to help people engage that area of life, that topic. Same thing with music, but you got to wrestle with some things before you get into. All right, let's look at some of this music. But I would say music is like language. I mean, it is a form of language. Yeah. And if I was going to go to Brazil and engage people far from the Lord there, I'm going to have to understand the context. I'm going to have to understand their language and be able to communicate with them appropriately in a way that they understand. Yeah. I think music is a form of language, but it's a form of language that actually tells you some things about that people if you would just listen. And so if you don't understand their language and you don't understand what they're expressing in this language, then you're going to be at a deficit trying to communicate Jesus to that language. And then when you look at the various genres, so, what was interesting about, Derwin last week, I mean, he pulled out a guy, Tony Evans' son, that, is trying to write mainstream music, but he's very much Christian. Which, it was an easy song for him to kind of do. Yeah. I like to pull more non-Christian music out because I want to know what non-Christians are saying. And so that's why we pulled out Siza. We'll pull out Benson Boone next week, and then I'm still holding out on telling you who we're going to do the last week, but everybody would know them. And so I want to know what they're saying. Right. Because they represent millions, tens of millions of people. Like Benson Boone's, his just view count now on just YouTube, like he is a TikTok sensation, went viral. But just the song that we're doing on YouTube has generated over 250 million views. 215 million people.
I don't think Extra Takes has gotten that many views.
No. And then, then it's only 5 minutes, so they probably listened to all of it. It wasn't, 10, 15-minute song.
I heard it all. Yeah.
It is connected with people. We need to know what connected them because something translated to them that said, yes, that's it. But there's holes in his song. Right. So we're wanting to know the language so that we're able to, from a communication standpoint, connect to a larger culture. And so I got I got a text message. I can't believe that you would do that. It's a slippery slope, and telling people to listen to secular music. And one, I didn't tell people to listen to secular music. I actually told them quit thinking about music as sacred and secular. Yeah. And then to ask the questions that we need to ask to at least from discernment and a spirit's discretion, whether or not we should even listen to it. Because I would say that there's some music that you should not listen to, but not all music, even from a non-Christian singing it, is bad. And that's why I wanted to do the introduction the way I did. But if we don't listen to non-Christians and what they are singing, when you have a large percentage of the population, of the world's population, that listen to music, let's just say English, and which we got Spanish speakers and Portuguese speakers, so they have the whole, we need to know the language. And what's fascinating is if you listen to the genre of country, you're going to hear you're going to hear some differences of what they believe, questions about their life, what they value, what they love, what they worship. I mean, they got beer in the Bible in some of their music.
Yep.
Then in some of the R&B music, it's desires, and it's I mean. So that's why sometimes if you would look at the genre, they actually represent a subset of a culture. So they represent a demographic. So when you look at Seminole County, you have all of these different pockets of demographics, and those demographics, depending on who they are, how old they are, and what their background is, they might listen to country, they might listen to R&B, they actually might listen to oldies, and knowing the demographic and what they listen to will allow you to be able to, again, communicate clearly to that demographic.
That's so good. That's so good. So after the introduction, and I've got several points that we'll get into based on what you talked about, but after the introduction, you broke down the lyrics of Saturn. You gave 4 big headings that we'll get into. You then gave probably a 15-minute summary of looking at the questions that Siza laid out and answering those questions by giving the story of the Bible. You laid out some pushback, and then you did a wrap-up. And I love that you ended with, therefore Jesus is the Saturn that Siza dreams of, which was an incredible thing to think about how many parallels there were, right, that we could connect from a song that I had never heard of, immediately catchy, and you look at the words, and it just jumps off the page. So how else might I do that with other songs that I do know, right?
Yeah.
Maybe more familiar. So let's start with Daniel 3.
Okay.
You said music is the cue for the culture to know when and who to bow down to. So some might ask, is music really that influential in our lives? Like, can it really be that harmful? Isn't it just for fun? It just, it's not really that influential.
Well, if you think about when you go back to what we do with culture, we can create, we can celebrate, we can consume, we can critique, and we can condemn. When you think about creating music, so Siza created music because that was meaningful to her.
Yeah.
That she's expressing something there.
Yeah.
And then when you think about artists that grow a platform, that have an artist that has millions of followers, something about their music and consuming their music has hit something, has struck a chord, pardon the music pun, with an audience.
And it's not just the tune.
And it's not just the tune, it's the words.
Yeah.
Now, what's fascinating about, music and artistry and lyrics is that there are times that and again, I don't even know the technical language, but the musicality, the instrumental composing can bring out the words and make them even more impactful.
Yeah.
But yet, unless you're at a party and you're wanting dance music, music is connecting with us and what it's saying.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't register with us, we typically won't continue to listen to it, which is why, even the Z, and Jim Hogue, who is a member here, he runs the Z, they have a list of the songs that actually move people, that actually are the listener's favorite. So they're going to play those songs more often. It is a cue the music.
Yeah.
Because they're going to draw you in. You know, I do believe, and that's why I do believe that, music is the cue for the culture to bow down. But then that's where I go back to the demographics and the breakdown.
Yeah.
Is that depending on what, now again, when I looked at Daniel 3, this was the music that is going to be played for the entire nation and all of the peoples living within that nation. When you hear this music, this is when you bow down, and this is what you bow down to.
Yeah.
So music is going to tell you, all right, so if you take, so let's just say you take Saturn, this song. Okay, what is the cue for the culture to know when and who to bow down to? So she's not bowing down to anyone but herself now, because she's tried everything. And then, so when do you do it? Well, whenever you want to do it. Like, and so she will say, let's see the lyric. So I find something worth saving. It's all for the taking.
Yeah.
Like, so listen, there's no purpose to life. I'm kind of confused about life. It's it's this repeated pain in life.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just going to live for today.
Yeah, whatever.
So
goes,
in some sense, she's just living for herself. That's who she's living for. So therefore, that the cue of her music is that, listen, I've tried everything. Like, here's what's interesting. There's two statements I came across from articles about her song Saturn. So Siza wants to express a longing for something more, a desire to escape the monotony and pain of the current reality. And even besides the song Saturn, Siza also mentioned existentialism in her other song, which also delves into the struggle of life and finding purpose. So in some sense, her purpose is, I'm just going to do what I want to do today. Like, I'm just going to take hold of today, live today, because I would in some sense rather float away and be at Saturn. Then another one says, overall, Saturn conveys a message of seeking solace and redemption in a world that seems devoid of hope and satisfaction. The song invites listeners to reflect on their own feelings of alienation and discontent, offering a glimpse into complexities of human emotions and the search for fulfillment and peace. So once again, when you look at cue the music, so the cue of the culture to know when to bow down and who to bow down to. So at least in this song, there's really bowing down to self, and whenever you want to. But if you can take other songs, they'll tell you to bow down to beer in the Bible. they'll tell you to bow down to anger and resentment. They'll tell you to,
just find the right spouse.
You just and so again, you have to look at the genre of music and what that music is saying, and they're going to tell you. And most of the music is that you're going to ultimately bow down to yourself. And when do you do this? You do this when you're angry. You do this when you want money. You do this when you are trying to find satisfaction. You bow down to yourself whenever you want to. I mean,
well, and I think the messaging we want to get across is that what we consume is not harmless. It has an effect.
Okay. If somebody wants to push against that, here's what I would say. Is the food that we put into our bodies over time, that food is going to have a cumulative effect on the functionality of our body. That is just scientifically true across the board. If I'm going to drink, and you can say alcohol, you can say, and I'm going to drink it in certain ways, it is going to have a cumulative effect. If all you're putting in your body is just bad, sugary, processed food, and that's all you live on, I'm telling you, cumulatively speaking, over years, it's going to affect your body. Yeah. That's why you have to pay attention to what you are putting in your body, what you are putting in your mind. The friends, in some sense, that so whatever comes in is shaping you.
Yeah.
Food's going to shape you. Music is going to shape you. The other culture that you consume is going to shape you.
Yeah.
Now, also what's fascinating, I was with a group of pastors this past week, and I was teaching them the class Organizational and Change Leadership class, but one of the guys, he had tests done on blood work tests to see how he metabolizes food.
Okay.
Some food he metabolizes different than others, and so he has a completely new diet that is shaped around even more information and data about how his body particularly processes food.
Right.
Which is why I use that as an example, because we have a way that we process also what comes into our life. So if we live by the Bible and we use the Bible as the filter of how we're filtering what comes in, then it won't necessarily affect us the way it would have if we had no filter of it coming in.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason why you need to, can you discern what is right about that movie and what's wrong about that movie? Can you discern what is right about that music and what is wrong about that music? Because if you can, there's that filter.
Yeah.
And that will prohibit the bad things from actually affecting you.
Yeah. I wish I had this series 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I used to listen to, and I still listen to country music, but I listened to a lot of country music growing up, and it affected me more than I realized.
Yeah.
With the way I saw the world and everything. And I can listen to it now differently than I could then.
Yeah.
But it absolutely shaped my thoughts on all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Family life, spouse,
Yeah.
how to have fun, all of that stuff. Yeah.
I'll give you a for instance. So, and I used this example this past week in a different way, but it applies here. So when I was training for the Ironman that I did, like I don't drink Cokes. Like, I mean, Topo Chico, yay! And I'm not a teetotaler, which is a big word for, I'm not one of those who says no alcohol.
Yeah.
I do think alcohol is okay in moderation, but I also think there's a lot of wisdom and biblical discernment around, you need to pay attention who you drink around because it could be a stumbling block. So I do believe that what Paul talks about, don't do anything around a brother or sister that could be a stumbling block that allows them to fall back into idolatry. I do think alcohol is an element of idolatry where people can fall back into. So I think that too. But I also want people to know too is that a big idol in our culture is obesity. And so, I think you also have to be, careful there. But nevertheless, here's what going back to the Ironman, is that in certain moments, I could drink a Coke and it actually would not even affect my body because of how my body was burning sugar at that stage.
And you needed it.
And
right?
I needed it. And so it was how my body was processing things at that certain time that did not negatively affect me the way it would have if I just sit around drinking Coke.
Interesting, yeah.
That's where it's so important to understand the Bible, because there's going to be a lot of things just living in the world. So think about this. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had to still hear the music. They just weren't affected by the music. So it wasn't like they had the ability to put earplugs in
Or just leave.
Which is why they became ostracized, and because they were standing when everybody else was bowing. The music did not affect them the way it affected the other people in the culture. So that's where it is okay to be in the world. You're just not of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So let's look at Siza in the song Saturn. I asked this question last week, and I think this is helpful for each song. How did you choose the artist and song?
Lori helped me.
Lori Hall did, yeah?
I didn't know anything about Saturn.
Okay.
Didn't know anything about Benz and Boone.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I had saw that Willie Nelson was going to come out with a new album, but I don't know if his hit just yet.
Okay.
So I was like looking more at albums, and I couldn't really find.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
And I think I heard you say that she was the largest Grammy nominated artist this
in 2024.
Year. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how, and so Lori found the song.
Yeah. And there were a lot of songs that you couldn't necessarily do on a corporate worship gathering.
Well, there was a lot of connections. So walk me through that process. Once you started digging into the song, you said that you analyzed the song, the same way you would a passage of Scripture. So walk me through that process of what that was like as you were digging into these lyrics, both the first time and then through that process of writing the message.
I mean, here you could see, here's what I did. I actually started writing down the lyrics. Because that's one of the things that I do in Scripture. If I've never necessarily preached on that passage before, well, let me write it down. Because there's a difference between seeing something, reading something, and actually writing it down.
I've experienced that. There's power in that, just writing it down. Yeah.
So just as if you wanted to zoom in, you could. I mean, that's just my notebook right here that I've written it down. But then you can see I'm circling things.
Okay.
Paradise, hell, nirvana, karma. There's a theme.
Keywords. Okay.
They're themes, and what are their worldview themes?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I come over here and I go, she wants to go to another planet, so she wants an alternative reality. She wants to escape this planet. She thinks it's a terrible terradome. She wants a sign that if that other world exists, can you give me a sign? She's frustrated with the cyclical pattern of life. She calls it a paradigm. She calls it a model. But there is a glimmer of a hope. I might be wrong. Find something worth saving. So there is some kind of hopeful that maybe she's missing something. And then over here, then I can start blocking it out. So I come over here and I got paradise, hell, nirvana, karma, and then I write out what it could be. Stuck in a terradome, so paradigm, pattern. So she even uses the word paradigm, pattern, and she says she's stuck. She's stuck in something. Well, what happens usually when we're stuck in something? Well, we're actually stuck in a model. We're stuck in some kind of pattern that we can't get out of. Then she says there's got to be something more, dreaming of Saturn. And so, I did say this. I circled this. It never made the message, though. So biggest mistake is trying to make sense of the world through creatures' eyes rather than through the Creator's eyes. Boom! I could have said that. Man, that was good. Yeah.
That was good.
So she's trying to the reason why she's so frustrated is that she's trying to make sense of the world through a creature's eyes rather than through the Creator's eyes. Because then I brought in the Creator's eyes, right? The story of God and the story of another world. But so that's how and then I figure out, all right, so I got these now big blocks. How would I put them in headings? Yeah. Well, so that's where I put them in these big blocks. So where is she at? Why she believes she's where she's at? What she is tried to do to help her cope with where she's at, and then she actually won't. She's like, is there something else? Is there something I'm missing? I would love for there to be something more. Well, someone saved me. Is another world out there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how. And again, that's how I actually do Scripture. Now, Scripture, and that's why I also wanted to pull out some of what other people had said regarding her song, which is why I quoted those two things to see if I was on the right track. I was definitely on the right track. So that's what I'm going to do with the Bible. I'm going to look at a passage and we'll see, well, what's that passage really saying? What are key words? How would I break these down into big buckets? And then I'm going to go and consult background commentaries, like what was the context? Because again, I didn't live 2,000 years ago. I don't know Siza, so I'm going to try to get into her mind a little bit, and maybe another author who has either interviewed her or heard. And so that's what I'm going to do with the Bible. I'm going to try to get into the mind of the original author, see if there might be some context there that I might need to know. And then I'm going to read some commentary to see if I'm tracking, in some sense, in the right direction. And then I'm going to deliver. And that's what I did here. But in this case, I'm going to deliver her and these big buckets. And then I'm going to ask, okay, is there anything in the Bible that helps make sense out of these big buckets?
Yeah. What I found interesting about this song is she laid out a bunch of questions, and she was pretty honest about her searching in the way that her searching had just left her empty and then searching again. We don't always get that. I think a lot of messaging in songs, there's a narrative that is you have to be really discerning, because they're just giving you answers whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
Where her solution was just to leave the world, right? Oh, excuse me. Where really what was more compelling was the questions she was asking, and really there's some hopelessness there. There's just a journey, and when you talk about people being able to relate, man, there's obviously an opportunity for so many of us to relate to that. So while you were doing this process, whether you were digging into the song or Siza as a person, what surprised you? Anything surprised you?
I wasn't actually. I don't know if it surprised me. I looked at that song one time, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to do this song. This is easy. This is like somebody teeing it up for teeing you up. We go here, just knock it out of the park for
The lyrics just really jump off, don't they?
Yeah. And if we would just listen to more people, I'm certain that they'll tee you up too. The thing about artists, I mean, they're going to write how they're feeling, what's going on in their life.
Right. Yeah. Wow. It's an interesting thing that you said, because we don't always get that with our friends and family, or our coworkers or our acquaintances. We don't always get to, it takes a while to get their deep longings in life.
Yeah.
Where artists are laying it out there.
Yeah.
And then the ones that we know about, we hear about, it's because they resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those lyrics, those words resonate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say there was anything surprising.
Yeah.
It was, again, faithfully what I would call exegeting our culture and exegeting the word and bringing clarity and understanding to our world that is confused. And even after I broke it down and would answer her, one of the things that I know I needed to do was there would always be objections. So I try to put myself in the person's shoes that I was trying to tell the story to and go, well, what would be some of those objections?
Sure. Yeah.
And that's where those 5 things came from, because we can tell the story all day long. We can connect the scripture to them, and in some sense feel like we've done a really good job of creating clarity and answering their questions, but there will still be questions that they have. That's what I wanted to do after I did that.
So it sounds like you're saying we should expect that pushback. We should always,
well, of course,
we should always be thinking about how then will others respond.
Yeah.
So you spent a good chunk of time laying out, the story of the Bible, heaven on earth, hell on earth, God's love for the world and plan to redeem, restore, and renew the world. You said, hey, for many of us, we've heard this story before. Let's not grow tired of hearing it. How did you maybe frame or tell that story differently in light of this song?
Well, I kind of used her buckets, like, make some noise, signs. So it really started out with those. And then that Jesus even said he was not of this world. And then, but how did he bring us into this other world? And it was through dying for us. So basically I just used her categories.
I see.
And that's how I built out the biggest promise of that. And then that he's going to come back and bring us this world is what I was trying to really hit on there. So basically, I just used her categories.
Yeah.
And did it from there. Like, so when you think about noise, so repent and rebuke, he's making noise. He's not making friends when he's making those noise. And if you think about it, that noise has reverberated throughout history. The fact that we're still talking about Jesus is because he made so much noise 2,000 years ago. Yeah. And that noise was really connected to the signs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the ultimate sign. Yeah, so that's how I developed that story. But I had to set it up to even where did Jesus come in? And that's why I had to set up to
Sure.
because basically the reason why Jesus came was because there was hell on earth. But how did you get to hell on earth? I had to set that up and then just show how in Genesis 3 God's going to clothe them. We're waiting for somebody to clothe us, right? Genesis 6, 7, where God wiped out the world, but through Noah He's going to redeem a family, save a family, but knowing that something's going to happen later on where the world's not going to be destroyed again. Then Abraham and then Israel. I needed to show how you get to Jesus because Jesus is the fulfillment of the promises that God made to Adam and Eve. The promises that the promise that He made to Noah, the promises that He made to Abram, the promise that He made to David.
Yeah.
I mean, so He is the fulfillment, and then to use Jesus obviously as the one that builds out the categories of what she's expressed.
Yeah, I found it fascinating that she used that word signs because it's a very, very common word we use for the miracles that Jesus did. Signs and wonders.
Yeah, but if you look at John chapter 2, there were people, even in that day, well, just do a sign for us and we'll believe. And there was even one particular passage where if Jesus, he even says, because they were looking for a sign, even if somebody was raised from the dead, you still wouldn't believe. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that question of give me a sign, we have to be careful. We have to be careful just to think that that's the ultimate end of belief, because not always the case.
Yeah. And even the way I even unpacked the story, this time once again, I hope that it makes sense of where Israel falls into the story of God. They messed up. But Jesus, He's the one who rectified their ugliness and their fallenness. Same thing with Adam and Eve. So He absorbed the wrath, but in absorbing the wrath, He is the one now. The promise, again, in all, this is what Paul says in I believe it's the letter to the church at Corinth. In all of the Lord's promises, they find their yes in Jesus.
So I've been wondering this. This is a bit of a left turn, but question I had: do you think that Siza in her song, any of her songs, have ever been profiled at a church before?
Probably not. Probably not.
What I thought was interesting was you presented it as if she would see it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the feeling I got.
Yeah.
Which I thought presented it in a way that, it's obviously the way we should always talk about people, right? Whether they're going to see it or not.
Yeah.
As if they're going to see it.
Yeah.
But you did it in such a way that you were, you didn't take jabs at her at all. You were just really trying to connect it. And in doing that, then I think it helps, and this is a technique we can use as well. Then if millions and millions of people are watching and listening to this song because they connect to them, then what happens when you disparage the artist?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the person that connects to them feels disparaged, right?
Yeah.
But if you're trying to be open and honest about their longings, and then you could see how those that are listening to the song and can really relate to it can then be open to connecting as well. So,
well, and this is part of where Jesus is not come into the world to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved. We're not sitting here trying to condemn her words, her songs, her expressions. We are giving her, at least particularly her song, answers to what she's wrestling with.
Yeah.
And actually, what she's wrestling with is real.
Yeah.
It's reality, and the important part of that reality is that there are other people that are wrestling with that same kind of reality.
Well, of course. Yeah.
So don't dismiss the reality. We're not there to condemn the reality.
That's where we have to be careful with pop culture, is we dismiss it.
Yeah.
And we dismiss the art, and then we are actually dismissing how other people feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing going back to how we can engage culture, create, celebrate, consume, critique, or condemn. I think what we're doing in the series is critiquing songs, but we're not condemning songs.
Right.
And there's a big difference.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, would there be songs? Somebody would say, well, are there songs that you would condemn? Yeah. Which ones? I mean, anything that has to do with killing people, just for the sake of killing them because you don't like them. I mean, let's condemn that one. Those things. I mean, again, I don't listen to, this is the thing, I don't listen to a lot of, music outside of kind of the vein in which I live, which is why this is actually a helpful, process, and I would say project that I do every year is to wrestle with some larger, cultural things, because I do love cultural engagement.
Yeah. I think any song that openly celebrates the eat, drink, and be merry, let's just get drunk, do whatever we want type of culture, without wrestling with, this song clearly wrestles with it, right? But there are songs that celebrate, right, a culture that we would condemn. Yeah. So I think that that's one. If there's only one side of the song, that could be an opportunity for us to condemn it and to really call out the messaging there, and recognizing, hey, there's a danger in this messaging.
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be a good example.
Yeah, so I hope she listens to it. That'd be wonderful.
That would be great. And if you want to tithe, Siza, I'm joking.
If you want to what?
Tithe.
Oh, you went there. What? Don't go there. Don't go there. That's funny. So I think that is about the end. I think it was helpful the way you wrapped it up. We mentioned this before, but let me just read these. You said the world is fallen and broken, and if honest, most people know it, and it's really helpful for us to see and recognize. We're looking for a different world that is devoid of pain and suffering. We need a saving bridge, something or someone to get us from here to there. I think it's one of the reasons we should never get over our salvation. I think if we do, it's too easy to then just dismiss people that are there, that are searching, that are in that place of brokenness, mad at the world for the brokenness and the fallenness of the world, and they haven't got to the saving bridge yet. And you said, according to the Bible, Jesus is the saving bridge that fully saves and satisfies and transfers us from the kingdom of this world into the kingdom of God. Therefore, Jesus is the Saturn that Siza dreams of. We all have an opportunity. This is something that Pastor Gus had as a takeaway after listening. Just this compelling opportunity for evangelism and discipleship. Mm-hmm. The lostness that is all around us, and interesting that music and artists are open to expressing that lostness, and not everybody will be able to express it that way, but those that really relate to and connect to certain type of music, you can get a glimpse into what's resonating with them. And I think that can be helpful in discerning this is what is really meeting this person where they are and where their needs may be. Yeah,
absolutely. And I would, a thought that just popped into me is, even if you look at a lot of Christian music, guess who it's about?
Ourselves.
Yeah. don't know if that. And again, I think it's an expression of individuals who that's what they're feeling, and that's okay. But again, my point in that is that just because something might seem to be innocent and right doesn't necessarily mean it is innocent and right. Because I would say that by and large, one of the reasons why the church is in the position that she is in overall is because we've thought more about ourselves than we have God. And we have not put him where he actually already sits on his throne. Here's another thing. How many songs are out there about reaching people? So if you get it in your mind, if you're singing all these Christian songs, it's about you, and God, then you'll never think about we and God, and you'll never think about someone who is far from God. So
that's a mic drop right there.
But I will, but I will say this, like when you look at the objections as we, kind of wrap this up, I really would, draw people's attention to, really 1, 2, and 5. The first is, do you really expect me to believe in Jesus? I mean, I really do. But here's what you have to do. You have to, just the way we're trying to deal with Siza's lyrics and what she said, you have to deal with what he said. And you can't read into something that he didn't say. I mean, it's really clear that he says that he is God. So either, again, he's the biggest fraud or he's the biggest find. And then the second one is, I would write a different story in the sense of here's what people would write in. They would write in a story where there is no pain and suffering.
Right.
I get what you would do, but if God had to do that, he would have to have wiped out the entire human race. And we are still feeling the consequences of the fall, yet through Jesus' grace and mercy, we will not experience the finality of that pain and suffering. We will experience a temporary bite, but we will not be consumed. So that's where I'm like, listen, I understand that you would write a different story, get that, but you're not the one writing it. I'm not the one writing it. I got to process it just like you, just like anybody else. But I do think that the Bible makes sense of that. But nevertheless, again, we're not the writers. We're not the authors. And then the last one, is the apology.
Yeah.
Is that I think a lot of the reason, or a lot of people, the reason why they don't believe is because they're looking at the church and not who the church is supposed to be pointing to, and that's Jesus.
Yeah.
But if you just look at Jesus, you'll see the beauty, you'll see the harmony, you'll see the grace, you'll see the mercy, you'll see the love. I mean, he touched the untouchable, loved the unlovable. He dined with the unimaginable. He saved the unsavable. I mean, this is Jesus. And I know there are a lot of times where his church does not reflect him well at all. And once again, I'm sorry. And with that, that's Saturn.
So next week.
Oh, I can't wait to next
Benson
week.
Boone.
Yeah, so one of the things I like about Saturn gave a bigger, broader, like view.
Yeah, you got to do the whole
I got
Bible.
to do the whole thing. Years ago, I did Songs of the Greatest Showman, and I can't remember which song it was, but the very first one, I did the one where I could cover the story. Because again, everybody's looking for a bigger story. Everybody's looking for another planet. Everybody's looking for, some meta narrative to help make sense of their life. I keep saying that. This just shows you, what I'm trying to, say.
Keep saying it.
I keep saying it.
It'll take us a while.
But Benson, I can't. Yeah, I really can't wait because I'm going to tackle Job because of what his song entails, and we will look at actually pain and suffering in its kind of entirety. And then the last week, I'm still trying to see how I'm going to map it out. I think I know how I'm going to do it. I have actually a lot more material than what then I have time for. So that's where I got to figure out how am I going to map it out. Am I going to do a couple of themes in the music, or am I going to tackle like one big theme in a lot of her? Well, I just said her. Anyways, you can go figure that out.
So we're not saying who it is, but we all know.
I just let out a pronoun, her.
So it's a female artist that everybody knows. Right? That's as far as we're going.
That's as far as we're going.
When are they going to find out?
That day.
For real?
Yeah.
What? You're not going to leak it before that?
Why
they
would
just
I
have to
wanna leak
show
it?
up.
Well, because people may not want to show up if I leaked it.
There's another clue.
So
You might not want to show up. We're going to be expecting the worst.
you'll be expecting the worst.
It's going to be good.
Well, there's already been a lot of buzz around this.
Another clue.
If you can't figure out, then you are culturally clueless.
Oh, wow. That was hurtful.
I know. Do you know who it is? If you guess it, if you guess it right now, I'll tell you if you guessed it
No,
right.
I know who it is because I see I'm in the system.
Oh.
I'm in the meetings. Yeah.
But you wouldn't agree with that statement? That if I just gave you all of these clues.
There's a couple that fit the bill.
Yeah?
Maybe.
It's going to be fun.
If you guys have guesses, come up to us and guess over the next 2
And if
weeks.
you guess right, I will tell you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. If you guess right, we'll tell you.
Yeah. So that's how we'll do it. Well, Northland family and friends, as you ponder who that artist and album will be, just know that you are blessed because God is extremely loving and gracious and merciful to us, and you are definitely loved. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.